There are places on this earth where few dare to go. Places where the unknown lurks beneath our feet, waiting. But what if one day we dug too deep? What if, in our pursuit of knowledge, we unearthed something that was never meant to be found?
Siberia, a land of extremes, a place where the winter never truly ends, where the cold is so bitter it can steal the breath from your lungs in an instant. This vast, frozen expanse stretches for thousands of miles, untouched, unforgiving. Here, in one of the most desolate corners of the world, lies a mystery so terrifying that it has haunted minds for decades. Many places in Siberia remain uncharted, hidden beneath ice and snow. But beneath this frozen wasteland, something stirs. A legend, a story whispered in hushed tones, passed from one terrified voice to another. A legend of men who dared to dig too deep, of a hole that was never meant to be opened, and of the horrors that came from it. It is here in the heart of Siberia where this legend begins. A legend that would come to be known as the Siberian Hell Hole. The 20th century was an age of discovery, of scientific ambition and great technological leaps. It was also a time of fierce rivalry. The Cold War had pushed the Soviet Union and the United States into an arms race, a space race, and perhaps a race into the depths of the Earth itself. The Soviets were determined to dig deeper than anyone before them. Their mission was clear: to drill past the Earth's crust, to uncover geological secrets hidden for millions of years. A feat never before attempted on such a scale. Officially, these drilling projects were meant to study seismic activity, to understand the Earth's mantle, and perhaps even to tap into untapped mineral wealth. But some believe there was another purpose. According to legend, one particular Soviet team embarked on a secret drilling mission, one that was never officially documented. The location? A remote part of Siberia, far from prying eyes. The goal? To break through to unprecedented depths, to push the limits of human exploration. At first, the project went as expected. The team drilled deeper and deeper, their machines cutting through layers of ancient rock, their instruments recording seismic shifts in the Earth's crust. But as the weeks stretched into months, something changed. The deeper they went, the stranger their findings became. And then something happened that no scientist could explain. As the drill bit carved its way through the depths of the Earth, the research team began to notice unusual readings. The temperature at the bottom of the borehole was rising far beyond what their calculations had predicted. Some say it exceeded 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, hotter than expected, even for deep rock layers. But it wasn't just the heat. There was something else. A sound. At first, it was nothing more than a faint vibration, barely audible over the roar of the drilling equipment. Some thought it was the Earth shifting, the groaning of rock under immense pressure. But then the sound grew. It became clearer, more distinct, and what they heard would haunt them forever. It was voices. Not just one, not just a few, but thousands. A chorus of screams, men, women, children, all wailing in agony. Some say the voices whispered in unknown languages, their words filled with terror. Others claim they heard desperate pleas, as if souls trapped in eternal suffering were crying out for salvation. The scientists were horrified. Some refused to believe their own ears. Others fled the site, unable to shake the feeling that they had uncovered something not meant to be found. The recordings were taken, analyzed, and then, according to some reports, quickly buried by the Soviet authorities. Because if the legend is to be believed, the Soviets had not just dug a borehole. They had opened a gateway. The story might have been buried in Soviet archives, but legends have a way of escaping. By the late 1980s, rumors of the Siberian Hell Hole had spread beyond Russia, reaching Western media. Sensational reports claimed that Soviet scientists had recorded undeniable proof of hell itself. Some religious groups pointed to it as evidence of the afterlife, a warning to sinners. Others dismissed it as a hoax, an elaborate tale designed to stir fear and controversy. Even as the Soviet Union collapsed, the legend only grew. The story was retold on radio programs, in newspapers, and eventually across the internet. Skeptics dismissed the so-called hell sounds as nothing more than manipulated audio, possibly a mix of geological activity and layered recordings. But for those who heard it, the sound was too real, too haunting, and the question remained, if hell isn't real, then what exactly did they hear? Maybe some doors were never meant to be opened. Despite Soviet efforts to silence the story, whispers of the so-called hell sounds did not die. In the late 1980s, an alleged recording of the borehole's audio surfaced, first in obscure religious circles, then in newspapers, and finally on radio broadcasts. The chilling tape claimed to be taken directly from the Soviet drilling site, spread like wildfire. The recording was simple, a cacophony of screams. Desperate, tormented, unrelenting. A haunting chorus of agony that sent shivers down the spines of those who dared to listen. Was this truly the sound of hell, or something else entirely? One of the first major reports on the recording came from a Christian radio station in the United States. The host played the terrifying audio on air, warning listeners that this was proof of the underworld, a dire message from the depths of the earth. Within hours, phone lines were flooded. Listeners wept. Some claimed they had nightmares for weeks. Others insisted that hidden beneath the screams, there were whispers, something speaking in an ancient tongue. But where did this recording truly come from? Some say it was smuggled out of the Soviet Union by a scientist who couldn't bear to keep the secret. Others believe it was fabricated, a hoax designed to stir fear and intrigue. And yet, there were those who swore the recording was real, that the voices were not merely echoes of the earth, but something else, something unnatural. While believers saw the recording as proof of the supernatural, skeptics and scientists sought a more rational explanation. Could the terrifying noises be a natural phenomenon, one that was simply misinterpreted by frightened minds? Geologists proposed several possibilities. One theory suggested that the recording captured deep subterranean movements, shifting tectonic plates grinding against each other, creating eerie, unearthly sounds. Others pointed to volcanic activity, where trapped gases could produce unnatural wailing noises as they escaped through underground fissures. And then there was the psychological factor, the power of suggestion. If someone tells you that you're about to hear the screams of the damned, your mind might make you believe it. Many experts claimed that the recording was either doctored or completely fabricated, that it was nothing more than a mix of animal cries, distorted frequencies, and the imagination of a terrified audience. And yet, some anomalies remained. The recording contained frequencies unlike anything commonly found in nature, sonic signatures that seemed unnatural, as if whatever was making the sound was not merely geological, not merely human. What if the truth is more terrifying than either explanation? While the audio recording fueled speculation, other accounts came from those who had been there, the workers, the scientists, the men who had seen the borehole firsthand. Some refused to speak. Others claimed they were threatened into silence. But a handful came forward, their voices trembling as they recalled what they had witnessed. We heard something, not just through the radio, in the tunnel itself, a vibration in the rock, like it was alive. I don't know what it was. I only know that after we heard the sound, something changed. The temperature spiked. The equipment started failing. Men quit overnight. They said they felt watched. Perhaps the most disturbing claim came from an anonymous geologist who later fled Russia. He insisted that after hearing the sounds, the Soviet government shut down the entire project overnight, and that those who spoke too much disappeared. Why would a scientific project, one meant to uncover the mysteries of the earth, suddenly be abandoned? If there was nothing to fear, why were they so afraid? Today, the alleged borehole remains abandoned, a rusting relic of Soviet ambition, a site swallowed by time and by fear. No official records of the drilling site exist. No conclusive evidence remains to prove or disprove the legend. The hole itself? sealed, covered, hidden, as if those who were once in charge wanted it to be forgotten. But legends never die. Even now, some claim that strange noises can still be heard in the area, that the ground near the site trembles on certain nights, that animals refuse to go near it, and that sometimes if you listen closely, you can still hear the screams. But the question remains, was this truly the sound of hell, or something else entirely? The deeper they drilled, the louder the voices became, or so the story goes. What started as faint murmurs echoing from the Earth's depths soon grew into something far more unsettling. Scientists, trained to rely on logic and data, began to feel a presence, a weight pressing down from the depths below. Some workers refused to return to the site. Others claimed to feel watched. The few who stayed described the atmosphere as oppressive, an unseen force lurking just beyond the edge of human perception. As the borehole stretched further into the darkness, fear began to take hold. Was it simply the weight of isolation, the tricks of a tired mind, or had the drill pierced something unnatural? Then came the malfunctions. The deeper the drill went, the more the equipment began to fail. Power outages, instruments giving impossible readings, temperature gauges spiking without cause. Some claimed it was simply the pressure of the depths, mechanical failure caused by the extreme environment. But others whispered of something darker, that the Earth itself was fighting back, or perhaps something was rising. Whatever the truth, fear spread like wildfire. Men who had worked on drilling sites for years began to break down. Some refused to go near the borehole. Others reported nightmares, visions of figures moving beneath the earth, of whispers in the dark. One man claimed to have seen something, a figure standing at the edge of the hole in the dead of night, vanishing the moment anyone came close. His report was dismissed. The next day he quit without explanation and was never heard from again. And then, without warning, the entire project was shut down. Official reports cited funding issues and mechanical failures. But those who were there tell a different story. Some say the final night at the site was marked by chaos, men running, equipment left behind. Whatever they found at the bottom of that borehole, they were never meant to uncover. In the years that followed, records of the drilling project began to vanish. Official documents were sealed or destroyed. The names of those involved faded into obscurity. But a few fragments remain, half-burned pages, cryptic journal entries, and whispers from those who survived. Whatever the Soviets found beneath the frozen earth, they made sure it was buried. It was the recording that changed everything. A group of researchers had lowered a heat-resistant microphone into the borehole, hoping to capture seismic activity from deep within the earth. What they heard instead would send shockwaves through the scientific community. At first, it sounded like nothing more than static. But then, beneath the distortion, came something undeniable. Voices. Not one, but many. Hundreds, perhaps thousands. Crying, wailing, screaming in agony. The sound of human suffering. The recording was quickly locked away. Official reports dismissed it as a hoax, fabricated noise, distorted radio interference. But those who were there, they knew better. They had heard something real. The rumors spread beyond the scientific world. Word reached the Russian Orthodox Church, some say by the very scientists who had been at the site. According to whispered accounts, religious officials warned the Soviet authorities, "You have dug too deep." Some even claimed the borehole had breached something biblical, an entryway into hell itself. Of course, the Soviet regime was no ally of religion. The church's warnings were ignored, its concerns dismissed as superstition. And yet shortly after these meetings, the drilling project was mysteriously abandoned. The borehole was sealed. The project was erased. But even after the site was abandoned, something lingered. Locals living near the site reported strange occurrences. Shadows moving through the trees. A low, distant hum that never ceased, even in the dead of night. Some say that in the weeks following the project's closure, several workers went missing. No official records of their disappearances exist. But villagers claim that men would wander from the site in the middle of the night, walking aimlessly into the snow, never to return, as if something had taken them. To this day, official documents regarding the Kola Superdeep Borehole remain scarce. Some records exist, mostly technical data on the drilling process. But anything regarding the final days of the project? Sealed, restricted, or simply gone. Soviet officials never addressed the more disturbing claims. The screams, the vanishings, the warnings from religious figures, all dismissed as conspiracy. But those who worked there, those who heard the sounds, many of them never spoke of it again. And the ones who did, well, they were often silenced. And so, the borehole sits in silence, a forgotten relic of Cold War ambition, a monument to human curiosity, and perhaps to something far more sinister. For decades, no one has dared to reopen it. No new research has been conducted. The site remains untouched, buried beneath layers of secrecy and snow. But even now, travelers who pass through the region claim that on certain nights, when the wind is just right, they can still hear something rising from beneath the frozen earth. Something waiting. When the story of the Siberian Hell Hole first surfaced, it split the world into two camps. One side saw it as a scientific anomaly, a mystery yet to be explained by logic and reason. The other saw something far more terrifying, evidence of the supernatural, proof of an ancient warning ignored by mankind. For some, the screams were dismissed as mere fabrication, an urban legend spun from distorted radio signals or seismic activity, a case of hysteria fueled by human imagination. But for others, there was no denying what they had heard. The sounds were real, and they were unnatural. The debate raged on. Experts in geology and acoustics proposed explanations: natural gas movements, shifting rock formations, even wind echoing through the cavernous depths. But for every rational theory, there was an unsettling question left unanswered. If these were merely natural sounds, why did they sound like human voices? In the years following the collapse of the Soviet Union, rumors of the borehole resurfaced. A former researcher, now living in exile, made a shocking claim. The recording was real, but what the world had heard was only a fraction of the truth. They told us to destroy the tapes, but I kept a copy. What we heard, it was not of this world. But was this confession genuine? Or was it another layer of deception? An attempt to fuel an already sensational story? Many believe the recording was a carefully constructed hoax, a fabrication designed to captivate the public. Audio experts analyzed the tape, pointing out inconsistencies, evidence that the sounds had been artificially created, perhaps even borrowed from film archives. Yet no official source has ever confirmed the recording's true origin, and the mystery remains. Among the most chilling theories is the one whispered by religious scholars and exorcists alike, that the borehole was not just a scientific project, but an accidental portal, a doorway into hell. Some believe that by drilling into the Earth's deepest layers, scientists unwittingly breached a spiritual barrier, an ancient seal that was never meant to be broken, and what they heard were the voices of the damned. In religious doctrine, hell is often described not as a metaphor, but as a real place, a realm hidden beneath the Earth's surface. And if the borehole had reached its depths, it would explain why, shortly after the recording was made, the project was shut down, not for scientific reasons, but out of fear. Another theory, no less unsettling, suggests that what scientists encountered was not hell, but something far older, a lost civilization. Throughout history, myths and legends have spoken of ancient beings dwelling beneath the earth. From the Greek underworld to the Tibetan Shambhala, cultures across the world have hinted at a subterranean race, an intelligent species, possibly even predating humanity itself. Some researchers speculate that the borehole may have breached an unknown ecosystem, releasing sounds not from the supernatural, but from another species entirely. But if that's true, what else might have escaped? In the end, one fact remains undeniable. The project was abandoned, and its findings were buried. Why? Was it because the borehole had simply reached its technical limits? Or was there something far more sinister? Something that made even the most hardened Soviet officials recoil in terror. Despite its potential for groundbreaking discoveries, no further deep drilling projects have been attempted in the area. The land remains undisturbed, as if marked by an unspoken warning. Perhaps we will never know the truth. Perhaps the answers lie buried beneath layers of ice, steel, and secrecy. But the legend of the Siberian Hell Hole endures, a mystery that refuses to be silenced. And somewhere in the depths of the earth, beneath the cold Siberian soil, something still waits. Decades have passed since the Soviet deep drilling project came to an abrupt and mysterious halt. Yet, the legend of the Siberian Hell Hole refuses to fade into obscurity. It lingers like an echo trapped beneath the earth, waiting to be heard once more. Despite the lack of official documentation, the tale of the borehole continues to resurface. Skeptics dismiss it as folklore, a Cold War-era myth designed to thrill and terrify. But for those who were there, those who claim to have heard the sounds firsthand, the horror was real, and they are not alone. Even today, the recordings are analyzed, dissected, and debated. Were they the result of shifting tectonic plates? A natural phenomenon mistaken for something sinister? Or was the truth buried along with the borehole itself? The Kola Superdeep Borehole, the very place where the Hell Hole legend is said to have begun, now lies abandoned. Or so we're told. Over the years, adventurers and conspiracy theorists alike have attempted to locate the exact site of the borehole. Some claim to have found it, sealed, covered, erased from history. Others say the entire area has been classified, inaccessible to the public. But why? Some suspect the Russian government still monitors the location, ensuring that whatever lies beneath remains undisturbed. Others believe something was found, something that had to be contained. The mystery of the Siberian Hell Hole has seeped into the fabric of popular culture. From terrifying radio broadcasts to chilling horror films, the idea of a portal to another realm, be it hell, another dimension, or something even worse, continues to captivate the human imagination. Even mainstream media has explored the legend. Paranormal researchers, podcasters, and journalists have attempted to separate fact from fiction. Yet, no matter how much skepticism is thrown at the story, it never truly disappears. Why does this story persist? Is it because deep down we fear the unknown? Or is it because some legends are more than just stories? Despite all our advancements in science and technology, there is still so much we do not know about what lies beneath our feet. What if the borehole had reached something beyond human comprehension? Something hidden in the depths for millennia? Some scientists argue that the Earth's interior is far more complex than we understand. Unknown caverns, underground oceans, and extreme conditions that defy our expectations. Could it be possible that the sounds recorded in the borehole were evidence of an undiscovered phenomenon, a geological event, or something else entirely? In the end, the Siberian Hell Hole remains an enigma. Was it a hoax, carefully crafted to instill fear and fascination? A scientific anomaly misinterpreted as something supernatural? Or was it the greatest secret of all, one that the world was never meant to uncover? Perhaps the answers are still waiting, buried in the silence beneath the earth.